saying, I think the difference between what was alive and what was not alive, and you're saying that, like, you give the example of the koch hatenu in the hand, and you sort of work backwards that the koch hatenu in the hand had, I guess, acted the way it did because of the seichel, and that the koch hatenu in the hand sort of acted in its way because of the seichel, and then I don't remember exactly, he said the seichel because of the ratzon, he said, and I don't know exactly, said the ratzon exists because the thing is real. Some people, I don't remember exactly what you said. I wasn't exactly sure at that.
Okay, what I'm saying is that an action in the hand, in the human hand, represents his seichel, his midas, his seichel, his rotzen, and his nefesh, and the reality of his existence. The shlichus, why he's here. The godly phenomenon. What are you doing in the world? All that combines to enable him to move his hand. That's meant real.
The person has a godly existence and a shlichus from Hashem. That's why the person has a that's why the person has a ratzon.
Well, yeah, but that's all I wanted to point out is the Ayin from Chayim, that there is a reality expressed in Chayim. Why? Because there is the Mokir Chayim, where it's coming from. Chayim is not just a on-the-spot presence. As you will attend the classes more, you'll understand our terminology a little bit more. Okay. Okay, we went a little further, but I want to start just so that we have a complete thing. Okay, we'll start again from the 6 lines from the bottom. The line being, who are what's in the mitzvahs. So we said that Chaim is the Makor Chaim is Rotzon the mitzvahs. Ki Imcha Makir Chaim. Imcha that refers to the source of the Makir Chaim. Hu laham sheho Rotzon Kumeshu Hu Kol Bi Atzma Sein Soy. This is intended to denote the fact that you mamshech the Rotzon before the Rotzon is a presence of Rotzon, which is Makir Chaim. Before it becomes a rotz, it is in Atzma Sein Soy before it was defined as a rotz. And how do you reach to that point where there is not a rotzin yet, but you are actually eliciting the rotzin from its source? Who is this is by the as a result of the approach of tshuva miyumka deliver. As we discussed briefly yesterday, that the depth of the heart, that touches the very essence itself. Just to remind us briefly, there is the way the Shoma, the Lakus, is recognized in Seichel, and the way it is recognized in the heart. Normally we say that Seichel is superior to the heart, but yet Seichel has to illuminate and give guidance to the heart. But that's only in the Giluyim level. Seichel defines and gives guidance. But in Seichel, there is always, in Seichel, there is the sense of what this is about and why it is there. There is some kind of a broader presence. Even in Chochmah, which is the Nakudas HaSeichel, even there's a certain sense of a presence. as we discussed many times, that a principle in Seichel is that you sense when and how you got it. Now, with that which a person has in his Seichel, without having gone through the process of obtaining it, doesn't exist. It's not part of the Seichel. Seichel is something that you learned, and it was a moment what you didn't know, and then you made an effort, and you pursued, and you found it, and you got it. This phenomenon, this inyan of not having and getting, this is true in Chochmah as well. Even though Chochmah is mamash dovuk to the truth and so forth, but the principle, and this is what distinguishes Chochmah from Rotzen. Rotzen is there all the time. Chochmah is something that comes begili. There's a process to obtain Chochmah. Like we say, Borod HaMavrik. Borod HaMavrik means there is an active realization. And that's as we explained all the time, that the mosh of a Chochmah is sight. So even though in sight you actually see the entire reality instantaneously, there is not a development instantaneously, but there is nevertheless this inyan that sight comes after. Sight is when your eyes were closed and they open. The real sight is a moment when you open your eyes. Then you realize what there is. This is the Chochmah moment. So there is the experience of it coming, of a gilui, of coming to be. This is the way it is in Seichel. In the heart, so there is midas in the heart, which are created through the Seichel and so forth. But then there is the umko de liba, the essence of the heart. The umko of the liba, this does not have the process of how it came to be. This is the very essence of the nefesh itself. This was called Intvasihu Bereuso de Liba. Reuso de Liba does not have a process. And therefore, Umka de Liba, that goes back to, that touches and that relates to the very essence, not to the Rotzen, but Imko Mikechayim, how the Rotzen, before the Rotzen has been defined yet and created. So to be mamshich the Rotzen, because there was a transgression. As a result of that, the Rotzen has been retracted. To be mamshich the Rotzen back, you have to go to that very source, and this is Tshuva Diumke Deliba.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
We said before, Aymek la'aymek meant like the Aymek within Aymek. I'm wondering, it sounds like it's from our Aymek going to Hashem's Aymek. So why doesn't it say like Aymek bit Aymek?
No.
Okay.
Oymek does not mean our Oymek to Hashem.
Right.
No, Oymek means within depth itself. There's another depth.
Right.
Oymek, and then there is a deeper Oymek. In Seichel also there is Oymek, but the real Oymek is Umke de Liba. That is deeper than the Oymek of Seichel.
So this is talking about us?
It's talking about Lamailo, Umke de Umke, and in order to reach that, he has to come from us also, from Umke de Liba.
So this refers to both us and Hashem?
That's right. Yeah. Mima'amakim means the Oymek l'Oymek, which is our depth, and the reason you need that is because you're trying to reach Umke de Umke. All right, so let's continue. Thus, we must conclude and understand shehatshuva magia l'maylo mehorotzon demitzvos. That tshuva reaches higher than the rotzon of mitzvahs, from the very fact that tshuva is able to restore the rotzon from mitzvahs even after it was retracted, because it was a transgression. V'yesh leimar hamayla b'mitzvah hatshuva al kol hamitzvahs. They can further explain and go to a greater clarity to understand the Maila that's in mitzvah tshuva over all the other mitzvahs. Even though we have so to speak explained it, but it still remains to be explained. Why? Shaharei, since that Mikol Mokoy. Even so, after having explained that it goes to this depth from Umke de Liba, Oimeg de Oimeg, but still Mikol Mokoim, it still remains the principle that Mitzad Baal Horotzoim, that from the perspective of Baal Horotzoim means where the Rotzin comes from, the essence. The owner of the Rotzin, the one from whom the Rotzin comes, Kulam Shav, they're all equal. All mitzvahs are equal, including tshuva. Uma shalidei tshuva, the fact that through tshuva, mamshichim mibchinas oimeg horotzoin, they are able to draw from that bechina which is called oimeg horotzoin, the depth of the rotzoin, which means, we'll see in a moment, Harei kol zeh hu bechinas ha'oimeg shel horotzoin. It still remains related to Rotzin, but in the Rotzin itself, this is the Oimek Shel Rotzin. This is the way the Rotzin is at its deepest. How the Rotzin is contained in its source. Avol mitzad Baal HaRotzoin, but from the perspective from the Baal HaRotzoin, before it becomes Rotzain, Kol Horotzoinos Shavin Hein. There, all Rotzoinos are equal. From Baal Rotzain, whether it's Oimeg Rotzin or the Rotzin Begilui, all Rotzoinos are Shavin. And thus we understand now the expression in the Pasuk. Ki imcha aslicha. What means imcha aslicha? Slicha is the name from Hamshachas Ebagorotz. That's a forgiving of the sin. And that is imcha. What means imcha? He should have said mimcha, from you. Imcha, meet you, means he rag bebchinas imcha. Tofelu botel. That it is, imcha means it's secondary to you. Imcha means that which comes along, which is not the essence itself, that which comes with you. Therefore, this means it's tofilu bottle, this rotzin, this slicha is tofilu bottle to you. So even though we say that rotzin, that tshuva goes to the oimegorotzoin, so relative to other mitzvahs, relative to other ritzonos, it reaches deeper. But nevertheless, mitzad Baal HaRotzain, they're all equal. Even though this reaches deeper, but it reaches deeper within the Rotzin itself. And when we do mitzvahs, what is the focus? And what is the principle of mitzvahs? The principle of mitzvahs is not the Rotzin, but the Baal HaRotzain. And mitzad Baal HaRotzain, there is no difference.
So the imcha is referring to where the mitzvahs are originated, so to speak?
Well, even higher mitzvah, slicha. Slicha means that which can correct any inadequacies.
And we say that that's tuffle to the Baal.
That's tuffle to the
tuffle, meaning it's insignificant compared to the Baal?
Right. Compared to it isn't. Doesn't compare to the inyan from Baal Horotz. I just want to stop for a moment and relate. We should relate to the whole principle that we're talking about. That there is a rotzen, and then there is oimeg rotzen, and then there is a baal rotzen. And the reason we need to stop for a moment and reflect is that we, in our perception, do not realize the true significance of rotzen. Because in our experience, we think everything in terms of our experience, of how we relate to things. In our experience, rotzen has a reason, has a cause. Rotzen is not something that is there all the time. I want this because I'm lacking this. So even after all that we have learned and all that, that remains, so to speak, the primary view, but the automatic relation, the reaction to the word rotzen, will. You have to understand that will is a completely, the union from rotzen is a completely different phenomenon than what we are experiencing in I want. Like the Rebbe once said, and I mean, I'm quoting the Rebbe because the Rebbe said it in the Sikha, but this is something which is commonly known, that the word want in English means I want, I desire it, and it also means a lack. I want it because I'm lacking it. So they're related. I want because I'm lacking. That's not rotzen that we are talking about. That rotzen, I want because I'm lacking, is not rooted in Baal or Rotz. That has a circumstantial presence. You say that there is a rotzen, the way inside the Baal or Rotzen, we are talking about a different principle, a different phenomenon of rotzen. And as we spoke at the end of the Hemshech, that we learned in the last couple of weeks, that the fact that there is oil is because there is no oil in Atzmus. Why is there rotzen? Because Atzmus wanted to present itself in oil. Where is this want, this rotzen come from? This rotzen is one thing with the Atzmus. It doesn't represent any kind of want, any kind of lack, any kind of desire, any kind of satisfaction. Truth has a rotzen. What kind of rotzen? A true rotzen. A rotzen represents truth. So this is, so now when it comes to doing Torah mitzvahs, mitzvahs is rotzen Hashem and so forth. And as we always say, that the central, the core element in the mitzvah is not the fact that it's a good thing and that it makes life beautiful, it makes the world beautiful, and all the various benefits that come along with it. The primary benefit, the primary reality of a mitzvah is the presence of the Baal Horotz. And that cannot be distinguished from one rotzen to another. Because they all, rotzen is rooted in the Baal Horotz, rooted in the essence itself.
just on this imcha, the emphasis is that it goes back, that is nothing else besides the balaratzin. In other words, the slicha is coming mamish from the balaratzin. Is that what you're saying, imcha? That
No,
it's not.
Imcha means how the rotzen is rooted in Imcha, in Baal Rotzen. But it's not the Baal Rotzen himself.
Okay, so therefore we could say that slicha is on the level with everything else, because
From the perspective of the Baal Rotzen,
everything
it's the same thing. Why? Because the central thing of mitzvahs is the Baal Rotzen. That's an important thing to remember.
Essential.
What is ultimately the union of mitzvahs? Not to fulfill the Rotzen, but to relate to the Baal Rotzen. This is why we're looking from the perspective of the Baal Rotzen. So does that mean from mitzvahs is Baal Rotzen? From that perspective, there's no difference one mitzvah or another.
Remember, the tshuva draws from the Baal Ratzon itself, though, no? So doesn't that affect? I mean, not affect it differently.
Well, so far we're talking about tshuva drawing to the oimek rotz, oimek lo oimek, yimcha mekir chaim. The way the rotzen is contained within the Baal Rotzen. It's not the Baal Rotzen himself. It's not the Baal Rotzen. They're all equal.
So a mitzvah brings the presence of the Baal Ratzon. That's the.
That's
from
his
that
sense,
perspective, every mitzvah mamish brings the presence of the Baal Ratzon.
That's right.
Whether it's tshuva or whether it's anything else.
Answers our question.
Huh?
Answers the question we had in the beginning, kind of like.
It does not. It remains a question. What we are making a difference, saying that the difference between tshuva and other mitzvahs.
Yeah.
So how is it different?
No, so the thing is, if it's not different, then okay. We were saying that tshuva is greater.
BMK.
We were saying we should transgress 4 amas because tshuva is greater, but now we're saying how tshuva is equal, so then we shouldn't walk 4 amas. No? Am I off here?
You should not walk 4 amas under any circumstances.
Right.
Rishus Harabim. We're not talking about walking Rishus Harabim, carrying the shofar on Rishus Harabim in order to do the mitzvah of shofar. That's not what we're talking about. No, please, you mustn't misunderstand. That was not the question.
Oh.
The question was that we are battle the mitzvah shofar, lest by mistake we will walk in Rishus Harabim 4 amas.
Right.
No one ever suggested that it's okay to walk from Rishus Harabim, carry the shofar from Rishus Harabim 4 amas in order to get the bigger mitzvah. Nobody ever suggested that.
Okay. Question is, how do we mevatel it if it's such a great mitzvah?
We're saying don't blow shofar on Shabbos. That's how we mevatel it.
It says eich mevatelen. How do we do this?
So that's the question. What's the justification? We mevatel it. I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay, maybe I'll unwind some.
Unwind a little
strings,
bit, yeah.
And then we'll see how it goes from here.
Why don't you go from the beginning? Don't pick out a word eich mevatlin out of context. The question of eich mevatlin is not how do you accomplish the bittul or the mitzvah. You accomplish the mitzvah by not doing the mitzvah. That's how you mevatel your mevatel. The question of eich mevatlin, how do you dare? How do you take upon yourself to do such a thing? That's not the question. You're taking it out of context. All right.
We spoke about Ratzon a moment ago. We had truth has a Ratzon. So, and maybe it's because of the way we understand Ratzon. I'm thinking to myself, truth just seems to be. Truth is. This Indian of truth has a Ratzon. I'm not getting how there'd be anything. Unless is the point there that the Ratzon is so part of the truth, it's not an add-on, it's just inherent to it. And there's very little else we can discern. It's not an action, it's not based on lacking, it just has this. Is that
A truth that has no rotzen, or has no rotzen not in the presence, or that has not the ability of rotzen is not a truth. It's nothing.
truth that has no Why is it nothing? Why isn't it just truth alone?
What's it stand? What is? It's a lifeless truth.
Lifeless in that it's not being pogay on anything.
It doesn't have anything. It doesn't have any significance. It doesn't have itself.
I thought that was part of the inyan of truth, is that it doesn't have to be a presence, it doesn't have to make a
presence,
statement.
no. A presence, no, but it has to be a truth, it has to be reality.
It has to be reality. And inherently by being reality it must have ratzon. It cannot just be the reality without ratzon.
There are two types of peace.
Right.
Peace between two living people and peace at Montefiore.
Right.
Well, there's perfect peace.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you consider peace in Montefiore as peace?
No. Quiet maybe, but not peace.
It's not quiet, it's nothing.
Nothing.
It's not quiet,
So-
it's not peace.
So the real peace, so here the point is the real peace is a kind of harmony that shows on activity, that shows on ratzon.
That shows beyond activity, but the peace comes from something higher than any activity. This is why there is peace. Don't attempt to grasp this because it's not graspable.
Right. It's some way of
Just
Hearing-
that we learn
hearing what's
at the
being
end of the
said.
Hamshah that there is ideas hashlila. It's the only way you can approach this.
right.
So you can't grasp the fact that truth has to have a ratzon.
You can't grasp truth per se. You can't grasp truth, and you're going to grasp anything within it.
So we shouldn't try to ask the question, why does truth have a ratzon? So you can't really understand that.
That is clearly not a question, because there is not a reason for truth having anything, and then you're misunderstanding the term truth. If whatever it has a reason for its having, you're not talking about the truth, the pure truth. The question that is trying to identify is, how does it remain truth if it has a rotzen? So it's not pure truth. If it has a rotzen, so it's not pure truth. There's something add-on to it. This is trying to explain that rotzen is part and parcel of it being true, of truth, of reality. All right. V'im kein, and thus, since that we are from the perspective of the Baal Rotz, they're all equal. Therefore, we come back to the question: Ba'meh hu ha'yisrin b'tshuva. Where can we identify the Yisrin, the supremacy of tshuva al kol hamitzvos? Over all other mitzvahs. This we have made in the statement right in the beginning, that tshuva is a mitzvah, Roma ben Yisrael is superior to all the mitzvahs. And this is why it is able to affect slicha, forgiveness of the mitzvahs. And our question is, what in fact is the superior quality in tshuva that it has that power over all the mitzvahs? All the mitzvahs are touching essentially Baal HaRotzen. That's what a mitzvah is, because Rotzen is representative of the Baal HaRotzen. So what is the Yisron b'tshuva al kol ha-mitzvahs? Even though we say ki imcha mikir chaim and all that, it's still only imcha. It's not the essence itself. It's a Baal HaRotzen, they're all equal. What then is the the Yisra of Tshuva. Yesh loimar. So the explanation for this is the following. The whole ha-mitzvahs, that all the mitzvahs hari hamshachos on v'giluyon lemato, the fact that the mitzvahs came through and when nizgala were expressed here below, hu mi bechinas gili horotz. They are expressing Hilamato, their Gili Hilamato is from the Bechina that's called Gili Horotz. From that aspect, which is called Gili Horotz, in the revelation of the Rotz. Uma sheyesh bozeh koya hamatzava, and the fact that within this Gili Horotz, and thus in the mitzvahs, there is the koyach hamtzava, the koyach of the commander himself. Harei zeh behelem. That remains behelem. That is not begolui in the mitzvahs. Okay, so there is much to talk about this. Mibechinas gili horotzin, time is short. Mibechinas gili horotzin, even though, as we said, that rotzin is actually representative of the mitzvah. Rotzin is not an add-on, it's not another element than the commander himself. But the Rotzin could be the way it is part and parcel of the commander, and the way it is expressing itself, the way it comes in expression in Gilish. Which also requires a little more elaboration. What is the difference between the way it is in essence and the way it is in Gilui? In Gilui there are two states. There is the way it is Behelem and the way it is Begilui. In other words, there is a circumstantial element. Whereas in Helem, in way it is in essence, there is no circumstantial element. This is just one nakud. And here we have to stop, and we'll pick up again tomorrow morning. Okay, have a good day. I'm sorry you have to terminate like that.
Where did you say there was one nakuda?
In Helem, where it is in essence.
No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no.